United Kingdom gears up for the highly anticipated 2024 snap elections of 4th of July. Political parties have launched into full campaign mode, each promising a vision for the future amidst a backdrop of economic recovery and social transformation, so to say. Next report from Hassan tells you more.
The battleground is set for the UK's electoral showdown, with voters facing a choice that could shape the nation's trajectory for years to come. Against the backdrop of Brexit fallout and pandemic recovery, parties are presenting contrasting visions and strategies to win over a diverse electorate. The Conservative Party, led by the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, is campaigning on a platform of economic stability and continued post-Brexit reforms. In response to recent racist comments directed at him, Sunak described the UK as the most successful multi-faith, multi-ethnic democracy.
I think the vast majority of these people in our country rightly believe that it's not the colour of your skin or your background or your gender that defines who you are. You know, the fact that I'm the first British Asian Prime Minister, as you said at the beginning of the segment, is a wonderful thing, but also it's wonderful that it wasn't a big deal. And that's what's so special about our country. I don't think my story would be possible anywhere else.
The Labour Party is advocating for a fairer society through increased investment in public services, job creation and addressing inequality. Their campaign focuses on reversing austerity measures, strengthening health care and tackling climate change. Most polls in Britain have predicted a landslide victory for the Labour Party. Political analysts suggest that this election could mark a turning point for the UK, with widespread dissatisfaction over Conservative policies paving the way for a possible Labour majority in Parliament. The Sunday Times newspaper endorsed the main opposition Labour Party ahead of the July 4 parliamentary elections, arguing in an editorial that the country needs a radical reset after 14 years of Conservative rule. Syed Absarul Hassan reporting for DD India.
DD India's Ollie Barrett joining us live from London. Ollie, you've been tracking these polls so very closely and minutely. Now, first of all, the response to Sunak's response to recent racist remarks directed at him have been in news lately. So he has described UK as multi-faith, multi-ethnic democracy. What has been the reaction from Britain? How has Britain really taken to this?
Well, yeah, we've been hearing from the Prime Minister that he was hurt and angered by the comments from a Reform UK campaigner, which were recorded by the Channel 4 news broadcaster here in the UK. And he's also said that it brings into question the leadership of Nigel Farage when it comes to Reform UK. That is a sentiment that's been echoed by other parties as well. Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, has talked about this raising questions around Nigel Farage's leadership and some of the people in and around the Reform UK political party, which is a new political party for this election here in the UK. From Nigel Farage's perspective, he has responded to some of the anger that has been provoked by those comments by insisting that any bad apples, as he calls them, in the Reform UK party will be dealt with. And he says that, for example, the campaigner that was recorded making these racist comments has been removed from the party and won't be taking any further involvement. Opponents of Reform UK say that this episode shows that the party has some problematic members and people working on its behalf. As I say, Nigel Farage insisting that when you do set up a new political party like this, that you are going to have some difficulties with some of the people connected to it, particularly in the early stages. For Reform, they are trying to get some MPs into the House of Commons after July the 4th. They have had one MP already, but that was a defection from the Conservative Party rather than having won a constituency election for Westminster. So it'll be very interesting indeed to see whether Reform UK have been dented by this controversy in recent days. It's a little bit too early to tell from the polling as to whether Reform may have suffered or not as a result of the comments comments that Rishi Sunak felt so angered by, and it may well be that we don't really know until July the 4th, July the 5th itself, when the results start coming in.
Right. Having said that, would you agree, Ollie, that most polls there suggest that these elections have seen widespread dissatisfaction over conservative policies? We have earlier also talked about it, in a way paving way for possible Labour majority in Parliament. And the latest that we hear from Sunak camp, he seems to be making last-ditch efforts to make a comeback of sorts. Is that possible for him now?
It's not impossible. It's very, very difficult indeed, Sakal, for Rishi Sunak and his Conservatives, according to all of the polling that we've had recently, but also throughout the campaign and indeed before he called the snap election. He was trying, when he called the election, he was hoping that he was going to be able to close that gap, that the election campaign would see him take his case to the people, would get some momentum going for the Conservatives, but it just hasn't happened according to all of the polling. All of the polling suggests that Labour are on course for a parliamentary majority and potentially a very large one indeed. All of that said, the usual caveat applies, which is that the polling isn't always accurate. There could be a surprise of some sort in store when the British people actually go to the polls on July the 4th, but all of the polling does point towards a Labour win. One of the things that the Labour Party have been trying to do as a result of their large gap in the polling over the Conservatives is get their vote out. They don't want Labour supporters or people who are minded to vote Labour on July the 4th feeling as though this is already done and dusted, as though this is already over. And the danger for Labour is that if too many people up and down the country who might be supportive of their policies and might be minded to vote for them don't bother to go to the polls because they think the result is already secure, that could be dangerous for the Labour Party. So one of the things we will see in the coming days is an attempt by Labour in particular to make sure that people supportive of them do actually get out and vote when Thursday comes around.
All right, we'll leave it there. Many thanks, Ollie Barrett, for explaining to us the tone and tenor of these unprecedented polls in UK. Thank you.